Okay. 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 I'll stay in here all damn day. It don't matter to me. Not but 27 minutes late. Earl, is that late? There you go. See, Earl gets this. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to set the probably the only calendar. If you don't make it, I don't want to hear from you. I've heard about all these bills. And you're going to have to find them on that blue sheet because I don't know where they are. Okay. If I'd read my sheet, I could tell you where they are. All right. Ready up. Modified structure. HB 332. Any opposed? It's on. Structured. HB 374. Any opposed? Modified structure. HB 482. Any opposed? Modified structure. HB 494. Any opposed? It's on. Under open. HB 513. Any opposed? It's on. Modified structure. Did I forget one? Those thrilled again. Modified modified structure. HB 519. Any opposed? It's on. Modified structure. HB 605. Modified structure. HB 623. Modified structure. HB 624. Modified. Wait a minute. Where is it? Let me do that now.
That's what he had.
He was just checking. Did you count?
I did. Yes.
Modified open. HB 642. Anybody opposed? Yep. Modified structure. HB 673. All right, we're gonna stop right here for a second. Which one you wanna do first? All right, let's. I'm gonna put these, I got 3 amendments, you should have them on. You got 3 amendments, and we're just gonna do them in the order that we got them. This is AM 297778, Martin Kelly and others. Yes, sir. Wait a second. Wait a second. Try it again.
How's that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not true that you can only amend the same line in a bill one time on the floor, and that isn't it true that with these amendments they tend to overlap, and that we would be amending, depending on which one goes first, we would be amending the same section, which would disallow the amendment that came up afterwards. I know the Whip Coomer has an amendment he wants to put on, but if we put on an amendment that is in conflict with that because it amends the same line and same section, that amendment would be out of order.
Mr. Earhart knows of which he speaks. Mr. Coomer.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I believe Chairman Earhart's point is well received, and I think the cure for that would be to take the amendments up, that the chair would take the amendments up in an order that would alleviate that concern. And what I mean by that is, depending on which amendments pass or fail, the chair could then decide whether or not to go on to the subsequent amendment. And if an amendment fails, then we will not run in violation of the rule of amending the same line twice.
However, if one of the amendments passes, it stops the other 2.
That's correct. Well, so the way to resolve that is to have the chair call the amendments in a specific order, and then depending on whether each subsequent amendment passes or fails, the following amendments could be withdrawn or moved on. Is that right?
We have amended this bill once already, and I'm going to ask from the committee if anybody remembers if I did anything to lines 122, 123 on that amendment we've already done. Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking through my stack here from this morning, but I did, and I found one of them, and it's not that line, but in that, this committee is not amending the bill. We are simply deciding whether...
We are approving the amendment for you to vote on out there.
So, I agree with you completely, Mr. Chairman. So because we are only sending the amendments to the floor, so the floor could possibly consider them, we are not amending the bill here, thus we are not affecting the same line twice yet. Now, of course, the rules chairman does not have to call up any amendment he doesn't want to, but just because we sent 2 amendments to the floor that affected the same line would not be in and of itself violating the House rule yet. That'd be a decision for the speaker to make.
Well,
Mr. Earhart.
isn't it true that the rule on the House floor is last in, first up with respect to amendments? So haven't we always taken the position in this Rules Committee that we don't put conflicting amendments on there because we're not taking a position on which order the amendments could actually be taken on the floor, because that is purely at the discretion of the speaker. So if we put conflicting amendments onto the floor of the House, then we're giving direction contrary to the speaker's ability to make that choice. So we've always in the past said we won't put conflicting amendments onto the floor of the House as modified structured amendments. Isn't that true?
That is true. Mr. Setzler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Isn't it true that we could, as we're taking up some other amendments, the gentleman, the author, could reconstruct this to insert this language in a further up in the bill in a place that's not going to create that conflict, but would still create the conditions that he needs? Sticking it in paragraph 5 is not the only way the gentleman can accomplish his goal. We could create a, however, such conditions shall not apply to a motor vehicle, which is a complete stop. And we could do that in just a moment.
We could do that, but I'd have to have it printed up, and I'm not going to hold this bill any longer. It's going to go out here with these amendments, without these amendments. I'm going to put them in order here in just a minute. And frankly, with all the conversation, I don't want to put my speaker in the position of having to sit up there and read amendments all afternoon. Okay, let me tell you how it's going to go. We're going to vote on all these amendments. I'm going to turn them into the clerk's office, and I'll determine which one's last and which one's first. Everybody do like this. So in no particular order, I'm going to do Amendment AM 297778. Mr. Martin, your name is on that. Would you like to tell me in really quickly what that does?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This excludes from this bill from applying to a motor vehicle that is at a full and complete stop. I've verified with law enforcement. They know exactly what that is and when they would and would not apply it. So, Mr. Chairman, this would keep us from being, to my knowledge, the first state in the union that would apply a moving violation to a non-moving vehicle. If we pass this amendment, we keep the gentleman's intent, but we keep unintended consequence. I asked for favorable consideration, and if it's proper, move the passage of the amendment.
Well, I'm not going to argue the point that much, but I will tell you that under a DUI, if you pull up to the train and stop, I'm still going to arrest you for DUI. Mr. Earhart.
I was going to say that same thing. You're still drunk at the stop sign if you're stopped for a DUI.
Be sure and put your car in park. And I'm yeah. Okay. Mr. Martin has explained AM 297778. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second? Y'all want to talk about it? Now's the time. Nobody wants to talk about it. Let's vote on it. All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed, same sign. No. Ooh. All those in favor signify by raising your hand and keep them up. All those opposed, raise your hand. The amendment dies. See, now I don't have to make but one decision, if that. The next one in my grubby little hand is AM 390225. Mr. Stevens, you get his name's not on it. Mr. Williamson.
So, Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my amendment to offer you a binary choice on this situation.
Wait a second. This is a different amendment now.
Oh, excuse me.
Your name's on lots of them.
I defer the explanation to the majority whip, Mr. Chairman.
His name's not on there. I don't want him explaining. He gets to explain the next one. Mr. Martin, you ready for it?
It does is it's going to remove using a cell phone as an affirmative defense. I'm a lawyer and didn't stay at the Holiday Inn last night, but I believe it removes using a mobile telephone as a defense in our standard distracting driving law in Georgia. So this would allow our police officers to enforce distracted driving with a mobile device just as they would if a driver was using or doing anything else that made them distracted and caused the citizens of the state of Georgia to be in danger. That's my understanding of what this bill does, Mr. Chairman.
Does it not remove from current law 2 words? And I don't want to get into the exception. It removes 2 words down there, right? It says mobile telephone. Let's do like this. Okay. You've heard the explanation. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second? Is there any discussion? Mr. Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, on the amendment AM 390225, line 7 says it's going to delete lines 53 through 123. That's deleting the whole definitions part of the bill. And I'm trying to figure out, is that what the authors of the amendment are intending to do?
Mr. Coomer, now's the time to jump in.
I've had my light flashing for oh so long, Mr. Chairman. What the amendment would do is replace the substantive provisions in the existing House Bill 673 and replace those provisions with this language in the amendment. It would keep in the elevated points provisions that are in the beginning part of the bill, but it would remove the other substantive provisions. And under current law, it is a defense to the offense of distracted driving to tell the judge that you were on the phone when you were distracted. You go to court, you say, I was on the phone. The judge says, okay, that's a defense. You're not guilty of distracted driving. This removes that defense, and it actually addresses practically all of touching the phone and not touching the phone, or putting it to your ear or not putting it to your ear. The ultimate question is, were you distracted? If you were driving distracted, whether you use your phone or not, whether you're eating a hamburger, if you drive distracted, you'll be guilty of this violation, and you'll be subject to the points provisions that are specifically designed to cause teenagers, frankly, to lose their license if they have 2 violations within a 12-month period. So that is what the amendment does, as I understand it, Mr. Chairman.
And my question would be, Mr. Chairman, if I may, since all the amendment does on line 15 is delete mobile telephone, but the definition sections refers to anything on line 105 that you can watch a video or a movie on, you can still have your iPad up there looking at a movie as long as you didn't have your mobile telephone.
Let me explain why. Because the underlying statute says that you will not engage in distracted driving. However, the proper use of a mobile telephone shall not be a violation of this code section. So if you're using your iPad to watch TV, you're still in violation. There's no defense for that. This is just removing the defense that is in code for using a mobile telephone while you're driving, if it's distracting you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else want to discuss? Mr. Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Isn't it true that at this time of year it's difficult to walk through these types of calendars? So just in an abundance of deliberative action, I think it's a great idea that the whip and others want to debate this particular issue on the floor. Debate's the soul of what we do down here. Let's take this one to the floor and see who wins, the fish or the fowl. And we can have a lot of fun. We can decide if this is gutting the bill or if it's not gutting the bill, and then we'll quit bothering this committee with the back and forth.
Mr. Golick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And normally I would agree with my colleague from Cobb, but this is the crossover day, and time is of the essence. I would just say that to the discussion that we just had, while the amendment doesn't completely kill the bill, the amendment does certainly weaken the bill dramatically from where it was, and I think it's important for us to go into the conversation eyes wide open on that. It does delete the fine provision, and the specifics of the enforcement provisions they're just taken out. And the definitions, as Mr. Fleming said, are taken out. That's the real teeth of the bill, and that's the public safety imperative that we're addressing today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Willard.
Be recognized for a motion. A motion to table the bill till we get to.
No.
We got too many amendments here that we're not dealing with.
I'll let them vote. Well, let's do this. He's got a motion to table. Table takes precedent with the vote. All those in favor of tabling this bill, raise your hand. The amendment, excuse me.
The amendment?
Bill. Table it.
I know, I just said the amendment. All right, let's take a vote. Everybody in favor of this amendment signify by raising your hand.
In favor of passage?
Passing the amendment.
I don't know. I just don't know.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question as you're counting?
I can't.
I'm going to recognize Mr. Coomer, then all of this discussion's over with.
Isn't it true that voting yes on the amendment simply puts the amendment on the floor for a debate by the full House and does not send the bill from this committee changed in any way?
Absolutely. All those opposed to this bill, raise your hand. Bill, y'all, come on, you got me. All those opposed to the amendment, raise your hand. Some of y'all didn't vote. Let's try it again. Part of sitting at that desk is you're supposed to cast a vote. I'm going to ask you, we've got amendment number AM 390225. There has been a motion and a second. I'm wanting to know how many of you want to put this amendment on the floor. Signify by raising your hand. It's on the floor. All right.
I think he's going to withdraw.
AM 292779. And I want to remind you that we're here just to put an amendment on the floor if you want to. If you don't want to, you know how to vote. You'll be given the opportunity. And Mr. Williamson.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my amendment. Request.
Mr. Williamson is the only member of this committee who's on that thing, therefore it's withdrawn. Okay, start back. Modified open, HB 718. All opposed signify by aye. It's on. Under modified structure, HB 779. Any opposed? It's on. Under modified structure, HB HB 803. So here, I got a motion and a second. All those opposed, it's on. Under modified structure, HB 820. Okay, on your desk. This is a substitute. Excuse me. A substitute for HB 820. What this does is if you pass this, it will become a rules substitute for that bill. We're just approving the Rules Committee is approving the substitute. Mr. Coomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The substitute to House Bill 820, LC 440841S, provides a floating homestead exemption from the City of Atlanta taxes, capping annual increases at 2.6%. It also exempts the City of Atlanta from publishing annual notice of tax increase if it doesn't roll back millage rate to be revenue neutral. Does not apply to school taxes and technically applies to municipalities with independent school systems in more than 2 counties that have transit tax in place, which of course would mean we're talking about the City of Atlanta. And the substitute is the product of work between the author and members of the Atlanta City Delegation and the City of Atlanta, and that's how we get to where we are today, Mr. Chairman.
You've heard the explanation. Is there any questions of Mr. Coomer? Hearing none, do I hear a motion? Any opposed? Okay. The substitute that is approved by rules is approved. Okay. Under modified structure, HB 843. Do I hear a second? Got to move, 2 moves. Any opposed? 843. It's on. Under modified open, HB 852. Do I hear a second? Have a motion and a second. Any opposed? It's on. Under structured, HB 877.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any opposed? It's on. Under modified structure, HB 879. Two moves, good. Any, any opposed? It's on. Under modified structure, HB 887. Two moves is a second. Any opposed signify by aye. Under modified structure, HB 897. Any opposed? Motion carries its own. Under modified structure, HB 904. Motion second. All those opposed? Its own. Under modified open, HB 917. Any opposed? Its own. Under modified open, HB 920. Any opposed? Its own. Under modified structure, HB 927. Any opposed? Its own. Under structured, HB 929. Any opposed? It's I'm just going to keep on burning. Under modified structure, HB 972. Any opposed? Its own. Y'all remember this morning? Its own. Modified structure, HB 818. Y'all remember, that's when it's sent back because the wrong bill got sent to legislative council. Under modified structure, HB 982. Any opposed? Its own. Under modified structure, HB 999. Any opposed? So, under modified structure, HR 238. Any opposed? It's on. Under modified structure, HR 993. Any opposed? Under modified structure, HR 444. I think that's 33. Yeah. Yeah. That's done. Now for the next calendar. Y'all thought we were going to get out here early. You've been told a fib. This is to set the calendar for tomorrow when y'all show up at 1 o'clock. Correct? Everybody? You will be here at 11 o'clock for rules. We have rules at 11, session at 12. 1. Okay. Under for Thursday, y'all make sure everybody out there hears SB 131. You just want me to be too big? Y'all want to do one bill, or y'all want to think we ought to do more than one? Okay, under modified open, HR 655. Do I hear a move? Anybody opposed? You'll be so tired it won't matter, so that'll be it. We're adjourned.